I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back, the weekly Kickstarter roundup and crowdfunding and GameFound, that's part of crowdfunding, all of that stuff. And this week actually seems like a fairly light week, at least comparatively speaking. It's probably going to be a shorter video. This is the part where you can look at the time thingy and see how short it is. Generally, these videos are in the range of 45 minutes to an hour. This is probably coming in at under 45 minutes because there's not a lot of beat campaigns, although there are some worth paying attention to, and the nice part is some of those are cheaper. We don't have any crazy price points over here, nothing over the $100 range, I think, mostly, probably. We'll take a look and see. Although, speaking of the $100 range, let's go ahead and start our segment off with our Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a segment we do over here where, because we're about to look at a whole bunch of Kickstarter games, often Kickstarter games that are more expensive than what you see in retail, I like to show you something that's in retail, that's well vetted, that's been around, that you can buy right now. You don't have to go ahead and back it on Kickstarter, on GameFound. You don't have to pay a premium price for a premium game and then wait a year and a half to see if it shows up and to see if it's any good and all of that kind of stuff. This is something you can buy today in case you're interested, and today's pick is Viticulture. Why Viticulture, you say? Because I played Viticulture today, and Viticulture is awesome. Viticulture is a great game, highly recommend it, Stonemaier Games. You can go ahead and get this over at Card House at $45 as usual. Not a sponsored segment, I just like mixing up the game store I picked to spread the love and all that. But basically, it's a great game. Been around since, I want to say, I don't know. It's been around for a while because they had the original edition, then they had the Essential Edition. It's been around for a while. There's a new expansion coming for it or something. It's over on Stonemaier Games. They have like their what's coming up and all that stuff, and there's an expansion coming, so we can talk about that when that lands. But that is Viticulture Essential Edition over on Card House, $45, and this is one of the cheaper games, but not the cheapest that you'll see today. And with that, let's go ahead and start off with Board Game Adjacent. Starting with Drive-Thru Games. Speaking of GameFound, we have a few GameFounds today. Drive-Thru Games 2022, this is going to be a fundraising campaign for Drive-Thru Games. If you ever watched Joel Eddy, he's been around doing videos for a long time. I've been watching his videos since a long time. 1,300 videos. That is a lot of videos that is on his channel. He's been doing this for quite some time, and his stuff has been really consistent and reliable for years now. And he's doing a GameFound campaign to raise money for more equipment, more stuff, or whatever it is. And so this is his little campaign in case you want to check it out. He's done these on Kickstarter in the past. I don't know when the last one was, but this one is over on GameFound right now, in case you want to go ahead and donate and support. It's basically, again, it's just, if you've been watching his content, if you've benefited from his videos in any way, shape, or form, this is an opportunity to go ahead and support him. And by the way, there's a link to my Patreon down below. I'd be hard-pressed not to say that. In any case, moving on to the next one. We have the Archie modular and expandable game table. Before I dive into this one, just worth mentioning, they have sponsored a series of videos on my channel where I just mentioned their Kickstarter in a few weekend reviews, so just so you know, there is a relationship there. But the Archie game table, the Archie modular and expandable game table by Geek & Son, this is basically their newest game table. They've run game tables on Kickstarter for quite some time. This one seems to be their most successful, based not on the current backer count, but just based on how well it's doing so far. I don't know necessarily any particular reason for why. It might just be the type of table that they're bringing to the table. This is a modular game table in which they're going to be showing you they're not showing you. They're giving you basically a few different table sizes, which is par for the course, but they're giving you these boxes that can rearrange in different ways. I did a full video on this. You can check that out. Neither that video nor this video is sponsored for context. The only sponsored content is the one that the weekend review video. But anyways, that's the Archie game table. From Geek & Son. It's not cheap, obviously, because it's a game table. The various price points you can take a look at over here are going to be the price point or the base price point. That's before shipping. That's before the modular boxes. So factor that in as you go through it. But it looks cool. Looks fun. It looks like it gives you a good degree of flexibility and modularity. I don't have a good feel or fit for whether I would use those boxes or to what extent. Boxes like that are always cool. The concept's always cool. I think I would definitely use them. The question is how much. Like, do I need 15 boxes around the table? Will I use them? Will I cover them up? Will I use them for armrests? Is it just nice to have? Am I going to end up putting snacks there and forgetting? I don't have a firm idea on that yet. I will say that they did have, and they're slowly unlocking stretch goals. You can check out the updates, but they have these insets or whatever it is that normally are like $100 or $200 depending on the size. They're giving that out as stretch goals to anyone who backs now. So if you want to get on the table, you can go ahead and get this 224 or whatever it is backers as of now, 221 backers as of now, and yeah, you can go ahead and back, check it out, and see if 28 days to decide. Moving on to updates and cancellations, or cancellations and not funding. We have two cancellations, both very sad, unfortunately. We have Trinity of Reign, which this one makes me particularly sad because this was a great game. Or is a great game, or was a great game. I don't know what status it is when it's a canceled Kickstarter, and they're shelving it for now. It might come back in some way, shape, or form, but this is their second cancellation of the game, and so they basically said in the update, it might show up in the future. For right now, they're going to put it aside and work on other projects. At the end of the day, this is a game, I understand why I canceled. I understand why it didn't do so well, because it's an expensive game with, to me at least, one of my bigger critiques of the game is the fact that it doesn't look great. I don't think it looks great. I played it though, I had the opportunity to actually play it, and I know it is great, which is that weird balance that sometimes, like this is a game, if I had not played it, I would not be backing it. Absolutely not. It's an expensive game and it looks okay. But I did play it and I really liked it, and so I was backing it. But I get why it's not doing amazing, because again, I wouldn't have backed it had I not played it, and most people have not had a chance to play it. It's a shame to see it not fun. It's a shame to see it canceling, and I hope it does show up in the future in some way, shape, or form, because I really think this was a fantastic area control experience and managed to be different enough to stand out in the board game space. So I hope it shows up again. I'm not in a rush, but I hope for them and for me, just selfishly, I want this game on my table. But that's Trinity of Reign, unfortunately canceled. Then we have The Fog, Escape from Paradise. This one canceled as well. This one was on track to fun, but probably not on track to do amazingly well. And he posted an update that was a little bit strange in the sense that he compared The Fog as a game about escaping, basically. It's a game about a bunch of people on an island, and you're trying to slowly get them to escape to boats. And he posted an update that he's canceling it because he got feedback from people that it might be a little bit too close to the whole Ukraine-Russia thing right now, the idea of escaping, of trying to, choose who survives as they run away. I mean, I hear where it's coming from, but also no one in the Kickstarter seemed to have, or at least no one that I could see, seemed to have brought that up themselves. But he canceled it for right now, hopes to bring it back in the future when either with, I don't know the exact details because the update is locked, but he hopes to bring it back in the future in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just waiting till things are not currently what they are, or perhaps maybe tweaking the theme or this or that. I don't have a firm answer. From what I saw of this game, people who play this at conventions and all that seem to have a lot of positive things to say. Not a game I tried, and that's basically where we are. The Fog, which is, well, cancelled for now, but hopefully coming back. Moving on, we have Deeproot Dwellers. This is going to be in the not funding category. We have two in the not funding category. Deeproot Dwellers, which is bringing you which is bringing you worker placement and deck building at the same time. This is a mechanic that we've seen a few times. We've seen it in Endless Winter. We've seen it in Dune Imperium. We've seen it in Lost Ruins of Arnak. To a degree, we've seen it in Obsession, although I feel it's very different in the implementation there. But either way, Deeproot Dwellers is bringing you that as well. With your, what's it called? What's the word? Everdell. The aesthetic of the game, the animal creatures and the little world building very much feels like Everdell, just with, worker placement and deck building. That's the combination they're going for, specifically in the sense that your workers are actually cards that you're going to be placing down into different zones on the board. So it's really leaning heavily into the worker placement deck building, not in the sense of cards and deck building that complements the workers you place, but in the sense of literally your workers are your cards. So I'm interested in the implementation of that, of whether it would work or not. As of right now, unfortunately, this one looks like it's likely due for a cancellation. Just where it is, $8,000 in on a $40,000 stretch goal, that is not a recipe for a funded campaign, at least at this point. So Deeproot Dwellers, I'm mentioning it because it looks kind of fun, but I just don't see this one funding, unfortunately. Moving on to Monster Pit. Monster Pit from what's it called? Elzra Games, who have done the Catacombs series of games. They've done Catacombs 3rd Edition, Catacombs Castles, or whatever it is. They've done, there's a whole bunch of games in the Catacombs line, including Catacombs Dice, which is a recent one as well, or Catacombs Cubes. I think it's called Catacombs Cubes. But either way, we have Monster Pit, which is their newest game, and it's not related to Catacombs, and in fact, they very specifically make note over here, Monster Pit does not involve flicking, but it is set in the same world as Catacombs. The reason that's important to note is because if you're someone who didn't like flicking, but you were otherwise interested in that universe, that world, then this might be a game for you. So, yes, it is in the Catacombs world. No, it does not involve dexterity, as the other ones have involved in the past. Past that, this is basically a cooperative experience. There is a 1 versus many mode. There is a solo mode, but it's basically a light dice rolling, powers and abilities, boss battling experience. So it's going to involve you trying to take down a boss, working together, doing your thing, doing all of that, and that's basically it. This one likely will fund, just where it is so far. $26,000 and $31,000 goal with 19 days to go. This is likely going to fund, so likely should be totally fine. 347 backers. We'll take a look and see. Moving from there on to the new campaigns. Not a lot of updates this week. Updates I usually save for either campaigns that are ending shortly or any notable changes to a campaign. Not a lot of that from the recent things we've backed. In fact, we're kind of on a semi-lull right now. A lot of the bigger campaigns have closed. And there are some decent campaigns out there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the heavy hitters have recently closed, and right now we're just going through a temporary lull. I think next week we're starting up again with a bunch of things, but maybe the week after, we'll see ultimately. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into Warpgate Beyond from Wolf Designer. Warpgate Beyond is over on GameFound, and this one is an expansion to Warpgate. They cover that over here in terms of why back now, or what's new in Warpgate is the most important part. Although the why back now is because this game is GameFound exclusive, so if you want this game at all, you're going to have to back it now, or secondhand market. But why back now, or not what's new first, let's do what's new first. What's new is Warpgate Beyond replaces all cards in the base game and adds new ones, so it's completely changing the cards and giving you more card variety. We have a Hero Basic and Advanced Tactics were rebalanced. I realize I haven't told you what Warpgate is, I'll come back to it in a second. We have technology cards, reworked and rebalanced. They tried to make the technology cards a lot more interesting in the game. A lot more meaningful in terms of the original technology cards were always there and they mattered, but they didn't have that feeling of absolute coolness that many of these do. And if you actually look on some of these details, many of them seem very cool, especially if you're someone who has played this game and know what the game is like. Then we have 2 solo AI actions. We have objective cards now have partial completion. So much of new tweaks and stuff to the game. Now, Warpgate is a fast-paced 4X experience, and this is one that, I've reviewed the game, and it genuinely plays in under an hour. This is a fairly fast-moving 4X experience that plays in under an hour, at least in our experience. Maybe if you take some time, maybe it runs a drop over an hour. It has a lot of faction abilities that are a lot of fun. It has, just moving through space, trying to accomplish objectives, build out your fleet, move around, move your technology and science things to try to get more cards, try to accomplish different objectives. A lot of fun things going on, and my favorite part is the action mechanism, where you have basically a card row where you're placing down your cards one at a time into the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, and you're multiplying the strength of that action. So you have to figure out which of your cards do you want to take at a 4 times multiplier, and which one do you want to take at a 1 times multiplier. So you're trying to think through how you want to build out your action selection based on that multiplying mechanism, which I like a lot. Past that, the expansion, like I said already, we covered what's going on with in terms of the differences in the game, what's new, and the why back now is because it's GameFound exclusive. So if you want this game, this is your only opportunity to get your hands on it, again, except for the secondhand market, which I am surprised by. I mean, this game has been decently received, decently reviewed. I'm surprised that it's GameFound exclusive for the expansion entirely, but, I mean, it is what it is. So we have 517 people getting their hands on this game, and that is more by the time the campaign ends, obviously, but then past that, not a ton. As far as the game itself, as far as will it hold its value? Well, the fact that it's GameFound exclusive certainly does help. This one does fall into that slightly weird location in the sense that if you want to get this game, your option is likely the secondhand market with the base game, meaning most people who get the game, if they decide the expansion is not for them, most people, not all, are going to be selling both the expansion and the base game. So it's going to be harder to pick this one up on the secondhand market in terms of if you want to get this. So I would say if you do want to get it, GameFound is your best option. At the same time, as far as will it hold its value, that one falls more in the middle camp. The original Warpgate in general has done a decent job holding its value, but it's very, very much in the medium zone. Some copies selling at what people paid for, some copies selling below. And there's different options as well. There's a 1 to 4 player mode, and a 6-player mode as well. If you look at the rewards over here, we have the 1 to 4 player version, the Beyond expansion, and then the 1 to 6 player version. So if you want to save some money, but you're only playing it with 4 or less, then you can go ahead and get that 4-player option or whatever. You save some money there. But the flip side is if you get the more expensive option, well, you can play this with 5 and 6, and this game moves fast enough that you could still play it at 5 and 6 in under an hour and a half, so it might be worth getting that. So that's always the trade-off there as far as what you do. But that is Warpgate and the expansion Warpgate Beyond over on GameFound. Moving on to Hamlet, the village building game. 3,666 backers, $202,000 raised. Oh, up to 71 over there. 3671, $202,000 raised. Hamlet is from Mighty Boards and David Cherkoff. In fact, if you watch this video, which is a great video, I highly recommend watching the video if you are interested in this game. But the voice there, took me a while to recognize it, but it was David Cherkoff. It's the designer of the game voicing the video. Which is relevant, by the way, because which one was it? I think Monster Pit. Monster Pit, while, you can get the game and all that, but the video was not the best voiceover. It feels like it was read from a computer screen with a bunch of issues on it. I recommend never doing that again. If you're a Kickstarter creator, I recommend actually getting someone to voice your video. You can get a fairly decent job, definitely better than a computer, and without hiring professional voice help. Again, I mean, maybe David Shirkoff does do professional voiceovers, I don't know, but this was very peaceful, very engaging, a great video, and it wasn't with the computer or with professional voice help, unless David Shirkoff does professional voice stuff in the background. But anyways, I do recommend watching the video. Very engaging, very charming. You can check out my review as well, or any other content around the game. Hamlet is a village building game. It's a village building game which you're going to be collectively building out a village, deciding the means of production as you try to figure out what's being built, what middle goods you're going to be working on, and because different goods are upgraded effectively before they are used to slowly build the church in the middle. This is where you're actually going to have this delightful, where is it? This delightful, basically, church right over here. This thing over here is made up of a bunch of wooden pieces that you're going to be slotting onto the board as you make deliveries. This is part of the Kickstarter exclusive version. In general, they're only selling the Kickstarter exclusive version on the Kickstarter page, so we can go through that shortly, and they show it to you like 14 times, so plenty of opportunity to see it over here. But it's a game where you're basically trying to work together to build a village, to make deliveries, to add more workers and therefore more actions, slowly slotting down these hodgepodge of different types of tiles until ultimately you try to figure out the most efficient way to get points in the game, from making deliveries, from building the church, from building tiles, from gathering scoring goals, tons of things to do in this game. And this is, like I said already, the Kickstarter version of the game, and that's the only thing they're selling over here, and they're selling it for €55, roughly $60 or so. As far as what do you get in the Kickstarter version of the game, well, you got 16 custom illustrated meeples. So in the base game, you're going to get meeples. This one, you're going to get illustrated meeples. You're going to get coins over here, and they will not look like this. I'm very happy about that. I saw an update. We'll go through it, but they won't look like that. The reason I'm happy about that is because probably my least favorite metal coins from any game I have is probably Everdell. This is the second time Everdell's coming up now, but Everdell is my least favorite metal coins because they look chintzy. I don't know if that's a word that's used or not, but chintzy is just like, they look gaudy. They look like they're not premium. I don't have a better way of saying it, but they just don't look great. And this picture over here also doesn't look great. But don't worry, before we go, we will go ahead and look at an update, so we'll cover that. But they're basically spraying them or painting them or doing something to them. You'll see a good example that makes them look significantly better. You also have the 24 custom illustrated donkey pulls. That's not gonna stick. No one's gonna be calling donkey pulls. We have beeples, we have meeples, we have donkey pulls, we have any people just want to make this thing happen. I mean, I am with you. I would go for it too. I'll call anything a meeple or beeple or whatever we can do. We have the steeple. They have the steeple. You notice how they didn't do that? We have the donkey pulls, but they don't have the steeple. I mean, come on. But anyways, then we have the 3D cardboard church, which is made up of a bunch of different wooden pieces that you'll slowly be slotting down as you make deliveries. So that's the Kickstarter version, and then plus like a signed printed edition or whatever it is. And they specifically do say this version over here, this is a limited numbered version of the Deluxe edition of Hamlet. This version will only be printed once. But before you panic, they are saying over here, they note down over here that the future versions of Hamlets, then they may or may not have future deluxe editions, not like in retail, but they may have future deluxe editions, but it will not have the unique numbering of the first print run. In other words, this may be reprinted on Kickstarter, and you may have a deluxe version on Kickstarter, but they're not going to have this exact version. So factor that in, and that's specifically relevant. I was actually looking for that because of the fact that in general, Mighty Boards has regularly done reprints of their games. They regularly do come back with Excavation Earth, with Petrichor, with whatever it is. They usually come back to Kickstarter with subsequent, here's the original, plus new stuff. So I was actually surprised when I saw that it's only pre-printed once. I was like, that's a weird commitment to make from a company that does do reprints. And the answer is the commitment's only for like the exclusive numbered edition. There will be a retail edition of the game. Does not come with all these extras or whatnot. It'll obviously be cheaper, which brings us to, should you back it, should you not? Will it hold its value? All of that. And the short answer is maybe. In general, Mighty Boards games have been fairly in the middle, specifically using Petrichor and Excavation Earth as good examples. If you look at how well they've done on Kickstarter versus how well they've done at retail in terms of picking it up. I mean, first of all, if you want it, your options are the Kickstarter, the second Kickstarter, or picking it up from the secondhand market, which means you likely won't save that much, practically speaking. If you want it for yourself, the Kickstarter is as good an option as any. As far as, is this one that you can sell for what you got if it turns out to not be a game for you? Short answer is maybe, or you might lose a few dollars along the way. Excavation Earth and Petrichor, like I said, are great examples of games that if you bought them and then turned around and found it wasn't for you, you lost a few bucks, not a lot, but if you do want to get them regardless, the difference is close enough that you may as well get them on Kickstarter, because secondhand market's just going to give you a used copy that you still have to pay shipping on, you still have to deal with whatever, and you probably aren't saving that much, if anything. So it falls into that middle zone. Not a bad back, not a particularly amazing back either. Ultimately, it depends on how much you want the game. As far as the updates, because I promised you there's two things in the updates. The first, and scroll down here. The first is the fact that the coins are going to look more like this, okay? If they look anything like this picture, I'm happy. The other picture did not like, this picture very much like. The second thing is they talked about the bridges over here. Basically, they have these sticks that you place on the board that function as roads. And for me personally, like I've played the game, I find that a little jarring. I find it a little bit like, hey, we have these beautiful roads on the board, and then we have these sticks that are meant to be the same thing as roads. And I noted that in my review, I just didn't love that. It's not the end of the world, it's not a real problem, but it did bother me a little bit. And I understand why they don't have like roads. It's hard to like make an actual thing that would function properly, that could be modular but match the roads. I understand the problem they have, and the potential solution that they are potentially looking at, keep your eyes tuned for stretch goals or whatever it is, the unlocks, whatever it is, they are looking at some sort of a bridge option. Meaning, as opposed to the stick, some sort of like bridge option that makes it feel more like that it works. I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful, I want to see what they come up with because, again, I like the game. I'm just curious how that ultimately ends up being. And that is Hamlet. Moving on to Tiwanaku Exclusive Deluxe Edition, previously known as Pachamama. $80,000 raised, which I'm very happy about because this game canceled over on GameFound and I was sad, like very sad, because this is a great game. Pachamama is a deduction, well, Tiwanaku, I need to get locked in my head. Actually, I've been saying Pachamama for a while. 1,500 backers, Tiwanaku is the revised name, some sort of, I don't know, copyright issue or someone owns the name Pachamama or something happened. Doesn't particularly bother me. Tiwanaku is as vague to me as Pachamama because I don't know the language or the referencing of the words either way. As far as the game that's coming from Sit Down Games, they generally make these creative style games that are very different. They have Dive, they have Magic Maze, they always make these little, they have, what's the other one? There's a Rush game, Rush Out. They have a bunch of games that are always a little different in what they do, and Tiwanaku is going to be giving you deduction. Deduction in the sense that it's a competitive game, although they do have co-op and solo mode as well. I've played it solo and competitive. I have not played it cooperatively yet, although that's because the prototype we got only gave us, well, 3 scenarios, so I want to play more. But anyways, Tiwanaku is going to give you these scenarios that are locked in, that they have a specific defined answer, and then you have to try to deduce your way through it using specific logical clues. It's no different than any game in the genre, such as Awkward Guess, such as Search for Planet X. The difference is, I found Tiwanaku really heavily felt like a cooperative experience, even when it was competitive, which may or may not be a bad thing for you, but I just found we were all invested in the logical puzzle unfolding on the table. Like they show in the video over here, and you can check out the video, I highly recommend it, but basically they talk about, a Minesweeper and Sudoku and all those other games that give you that logical feel, and this absolutely scratches that same itch. It's delightful. It's one of my favorite deduction games. Like, I really like, what's the recent one? We have the Paint the Roses. Paint the Roses was another cooperative deduction game, an actual cooperative deduction game. This one is competitive, but it enabled such table talk and discussion and, figuring out together, even when you're being competitive, like, oh no, we can figure this out. I really liked it. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend it. This, like Hamlet, is offering you the deluxe version of the game as opposed to the retail version of the game, which will be cheaper, but will not give you the same stuff. So you have to decide whether you want those things. They had a option over here. Here we go. Here's the options of the stuff that you're getting in the deluxe version that you won't otherwise get in the retail version of the game. We have the deluxe upgraded design, a box over there. We have the insert, which you won't otherwise get, this functional insert, whatever they call it. We have the deluxe upgraded material for the boards over here. The edges will be wrapped. We have the soft linen paper for the rulebook. We have 10 extra scenarios, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's 20 versus 30 scenarios. For context, for those worried about replayability, 20 scenarios will not be enough if you are playing this game once a week. 20 scenarios will be enough if you are playing this game, I don't know, once a month, because practically speaking, or on average, maybe you play it 2 or 3 times when you first get it, and then you pull it out infrequently. Practically speaking, the scenarios do have the same map, so they may release future scenarios in the future that give you more content for the game, but if you have 20 scenarios, and again, the Kickstarter is giving you 30 scenarios, the base game is giving you, the retail is giving you 20, but practically speaking, it depends on how often you play it. If you go back to play this game after a year of not playing it, you're not going to remember what you played and what it was and what the breakdown was. If you play it next week, you likely will have some muscle memory locked in, so it really comes down to how often you're playing it. So I understand and acknowledge the concern, and it should be a concern, depending on how often you are playing the game. Past that, we have these little llama meeples and the people meeples, and all these things are upgraded. We have thicker cardboard, all these tokens, Deluxify tokens. We have custom unique player screens as opposed to the same player screen. So that's all the stuff you're getting in the deluxe version of the game. Like Hamlet, you're paying a premium if you want the Deluxe Edition. That's going to cost you $59 for the Deluxe Edition of the game, and it's going to give you 30 scenarios as opposed to 20. That's the biggest reason I'd be interested in it, because even though 20 is probably enough, what if I like the game a lot. It could actually see enough play, maybe, that I kind of want more. Here we go, the comparison to Minesweeper, Sudoku, and Tectonic. I have not played Tectonic. I need to now play Tectonic because I never heard of Tectonic, so I'm going to be looking into that. But anyways, and they have the note about replayability in this in terms of, what's going on there. The similar note, but ultimately I think it comes down to how often you're playing it. They have this delightful little tool that works. It works brilliantly. I think it's excellent. Overall, I have very few bad things to say about Tiwanaku, except, of course, now we move to the price point. Should you back it, should you not? Ultimately, it comes down to whether you want the game, whether you want the Deluxe Edition. Like Hamlet, if you want the Deluxe Edition, your option is the secondhand market, a future Kickstarter, or backing this Kickstarter. From those, I'm not confident what the price point would be. This is a great game, but also $60 for a deduction game is a decent amount to ask, and I don't know if there's enough demand. I mean, it's doing well. It's 1,500 backers, is doing well. I don't know if there's enough demand that this one clearly and obviously holds its value, so it's entirely possible that this is one that people will be selling for less than they paid for it, especially given the replayability aspect. You might have somebody who dives in, gets the game, plays it 10 times, and says this is great, and then moves on from it and sells it off to the next person, and there might be enough people doing that the price point doesn't really hold up. Might be. Or might. I don't have enough information on this one. There's no past campaigns I can really look at, and Sit Down Games. Sit Down Games has enough differences in their games that I'm not confident either way. There's no clear, consistent game track record I can look at as far as how their games do after the fact. What I would say on this one is I'm not confident it holds its value. I'm also not confident it won't. So if you want to get the game, Kickstarter is likely your safest place to get the Deluxe Edition. If you don't need the Deluxe Edition, by all means wait. You can get this game at retail. It's clearly doing well, and I hope it shows up at retail because I hope it continues to do well. So yeah, ultimately comes down to what you want to do over there, which is always true. So that's kind of useless to say. A Gigawatt, a power play for the future. 596 backers. We have Gigawatt over here. Can you lead your European region to a clean energy future? So this one falls in that weird space. We've seen a few of these games like this in general, by the way. The past year, I want to say this is like the third or fourth I've seen that is coming from a first-time creator trying to bring a board game approach to a like environmental aspect of trying to give a message environmentally, which I've said the same thing about all of them. I'm going to say the same thing here, which is I think it's a great idea and concept with the caveat that the question is, what is it first and foremost? Is it first and foremost a board game, or is it first and foremost trying to deliver a message? And the reason I'm always curious about that is because it does change what the game is or isn't. It does change what the game is likely to be and how good it likely is to be. Now, again, I've been wrong about some things like this in the past. Canvas is going to be a notable reference point where it's nothing to do with environmental stuff or whatever, but Canvas was a game that I kind of wrote off as being more mass market and not really gamery, and it's an amazing game that I really, really enjoy. So there's definitely times where you can be both. You can have more of a different approach and still be an amazing game, but it does mean I'm always biased towards how it walks into it, and I'm also biased towards how you're approaching the problem. Are you trying to give a message, which is good, but then can compromise the gameplay choices? Because is it actually a choice, or is there a clear direction in what you're supposed to do? Or is there an interesting actual choice going on? And I will say, from watching this video at least, it does seem like they are trying to give you that choice. Like, hey, there are times when this is better, there are times when that's better. You're going to have to make decisions around that. If they can balance it well, that would be excellent. Then the downside is always, if you can balance it well enough, then you're faced with the actual problems we have nowadays, where you might actually be tempted from a board game stance to make the wrong eco decisions, which is always an interesting balance. So it's always interesting to see these. I'm curious to see if we'll ever see one that really takes off and becomes like an amazing game that is well talked about and really gives you that environmental challenge and decision space that really makes you think and go for. Either way, I'm rambling a bit. This is Gigawatt. It's a game that's going to. It looks like it gives you some interesting decisions. Don't get me wrong. It looks like a fun game. But as far as where it is, this is one I don't see it holding its value. At least not in the board game space. It's going to be coming at $54 for the standard edition, and then it goes up from there. I don't see this one being a massive hit in terms of holding its value in the secondhand market. If you want the game, this might be your best chance to get it. I mean, there's 500 backers. We have 596 backers, but it's one that's less likely to hold its value. Moving on to Motor City, a strategic engine building roll and write game. $37,000 raised, 1,400 backers. This is the third game in the series basically of Fleet the Dice game and Three Sisters. It's an interesting series because licensing wise, Three Sisters was from Motor City Gameworks, and then it's now being distributed by 25th Century. But then we have Fleet the Dice game, which was designed by them but is owned and licensed by Eagle Gryphon. So it's always weird to call it a trilogy or series because designer wise it is. company ownership wise, not so much. But either way, this one's doing well so far. We have, again, 1,400 backers, 18 days to go, and this is giving you more roll and write goodness, combo-tastic roll and write goodness, and I'm very happy they included that in my quote over here. They have I Love Fleet the Dice game and Three Sisters. Motor City is a drift from those in a good way while maintaining all that combo-tastic goodness. I'm happy they included that because if you watch my review, I'm pretty sure I said the word combo-tastic 17 times, so it's very on point. But anyways, the game is combo-tastic. If you've played any of their games, Fleet or Three Sisters, then you will understand exactly what I'm talking about in the sense that you check off this box and that checks off that box, and you fill these 3 charts, and those allow you to fill those 2 charts, and you do this and you do this, and before you know it, you're crossing off 14 things, and you don't really remember what you crossed off or didn't because of how much interweaving cross-offingness you have, which arguably is a problem because you should remember what you did, or you're going to have a hard time actually properly doing everything. But that's what these games give you, and this is true here as well, that this does feel different from Three Sisters and Fleet the Dice game. I mean, enough overlap that you're cross-checking boxes, but it does definitely feel different, and it's worth picking up even if you own the other 2, assuming you like that style of game and you want more variety in that. This one's focused around basically a car production factory. So you have different areas, you have your engineers, you have your engineering tracks will score you lots of points, you have your production lines, which will give you a lot of different boxes in terms of, again, well, points, but also speedometer stuff and things like that. You have your used car sales, where you're going to actually go ahead and sell cars to get you money, which is important, so you can actually do things like upgrading your actions, buying more cars, and doing stuff like that. And then you have your actual racetracks, your testing facilities, where you can move around and start getting a bunch of things which are important to, well, do the whole combo-tastic, checking off this to check off that. So lots of fun things going on in the game, but this is basically what's going on with them. They have a module, an expansion module that's coming out over here. Let's see if we can find it. We have the car dealership. Nope. Not that. These are just testimonials. Where do we have? So we have some stretch goals in general. Some stretch goals, the customized dice over here, the coffee cup auditor marker, the swirlified dice, the bigger board, lots of stuff like that. That's fairly standard. And then they have this, the Kickstarter bonus, the certificates expansion. This is the expansion that they typically do in their games. They have a module you can get on Kickstarter. In this case, for this game, it's the Kickstarter certificates, which gives you different boards for different overlays or whatever it is for different players that give you something else to go for. So it gives you a little more variety to the experience as well as a little bit asymmetry to the experience. This is available to Kickstarter backers and potentially direct or expansions or not expansions, conventions or things like that, but will not be available directly from wherever retail. Additionally, they also have, and it's worth pointing out down here, they also have this over here. Nope, not that. They have extra Motor City score pads if you want that, but they have this, a Three Sisters rock garden. So if you like Three Sisters, if you have Three Sisters, and if you want a little bit of an extra little expansion thingy for Three Sisters, in addition to the weather expansion, which you can get from the original Kickstarter, they have this over here, $5 for the backyard garden. It gives you something else. Every time you draft a die in Three Sisters, you get to check off one of these boxes, and when you get rows and columns, you get extras. More combo-tastic goodness. Combo-tastic is the word of the day when it comes to these kinds of games. And that's what you have over here, all for $29 plus shipping, which will run you like $9 in the US and variable to other places. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? So my first instinct in these things, and this is, I'm probably going to go into a little more detail than I usually would on this. I thought it was interesting to go down my train of thought, and the way I sometimes look at these things when I'm trying to see, is it something that's worth getting or worth waiting for or picking up secondhand, all of those decisions. And so I looked at Three Sisters because Three Sisters had 3,400 backers and $92,000 raised, which means this one is definitely not doing as well. So will it hold up as well as Three Sisters? At least instinctively, because I'm actually wrong. You see, if you look at Three Sisters, if you look at the secondhand market for Three Sisters is also a $29 game, which also gave you the version of Three Sisters plus an expansion module, the weather module, so that's why you should get on Kickstarter. And if you look at the secondhand market, prices are overall pretty good. If you back Three Sisters and you're turning around and selling it, you're likely getting most or all of your money back, depending on the exact range it's sold for, and so that's great. That's a good reason to go ahead and get Motor City, because you're going to get that extra if it's good for you, and you can turn around and sell it and get your money back if it's not good for you. All those things. As usual, it's not about like reselling things just for the sake of it. It's reselling things that didn't work for you. It's backing games on Kickstarter with confidence that you can turn around, and if it's not right for you, you can sell it and get your money back and back the next Kickstarter you want and repeat the cycle, as opposed to just spending money that you shouldn't be spending. I mean, maybe you shouldn't be spending it anyway, but at least you're getting your money back if you don't like it. But anyways, as far as the comparison to the games, once I actually looked at KickTrack, because my first impression is if it's not as popular, if there's not as much demand, maybe people want farming over car salesmen. But if you actually look at KickTrack and you look at 5 days into KickTrack, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is where we are at the point of filming it, the actual number of backers on Three Sisters at that point is basically 1,450, which means the demand is right in line for these two games. They're basically roughly equitable, 50 backers apart, so I don't know where we'll actually end up. Maybe they will end up at 3,400 backers, maybe they won't, and that does factor in, but I would say overall it seems to be trending as well. So overall, overall, I think this is a safe back. Again, you might lose a few bucks, but I'm talking about a few bucks, not losing $10, $15. But that's Motor City, a great game. Highly recommend it if you like this style of game, and one that it's not for you, you can probably get most of your money back on. In any case, moving on to Small City Deluxe Edition. Small City Deluxe Edition. Small City is a 2015 game, rated fairly decently on Board Game Geek, and it's one that's been out of print for who knows how long, for like 4 years, something like that, which has led to the copies on Board Game Geek basically selling for like $60 on a regular basis. Sometimes even more, sometimes like $100 for the game, although if you really hunt for it, you can find copies for $40, but for the most part, it's selling for the $60 to $100 range as far as sales of Small City over on Board Game Geek. That's relevant to the should you back it part, but we'll come back to that. 713 backers, $73,000 raised. Small City is a game of being a mayor in a small city and trying to run for re-election, and you're trying to do so, but you have to convince the people that you are worth re-electing, which means you have to start building things and attract more business and attract more people to the town, and then go ahead and use your opponent's buildings, and they'll use your buildings, and there's all these things that you figure out how to build out your small city. A little dash of polyomino tiles, a little dash of engine building, dash of just building things up across 8 rounds as you go through a whole bunch of options, and this is the deluxe edition of the game, and also like 8 modules. I think it's like 8 modules for this game, plus an expansion, so a whole bunch of stuff for this game if you're interested. And like I said already, well rated on Board Game Geek, and the new deluxe edition also, in addition to having 8 modules, in addition to having the winter expansion, which gives like pollution and other factors as well. In addition to all of that, it has new updated art by Quanchi I need to research these names first. It has updated art by where is it? Where is the name? We have, let's see if I can find it here. If I can find it here, somewhere on the page, we have art by Quanchi Moria. Quanchi Moria. I hope I'm saying that correctly. If not, I apologize. But he does fantastic art. He just did, what's the AEG game? Rolling Heights he just did. He's done Under Falling Skies. He's done a million other games that I'm not remembering offhand, but his art's fantastic in general, and he's bringing that to Small City, to the deluxe edition of Small City. That's as far as what's going on here. So basically it's a reprint, expansions, modules, whole bunch of stuff. Officially speaking, there's no stretch goals, but it seems like he kind of wants to throw stretch goals in anyways, so he's kind of throwing things in, maybe. We'll see. You can take a look at what's going on over there. You can see some of these things. He's trying to not do a lot, but hey, maybe a few small things here. He doesn't want to delay production, basically. He wants to have a game that is ready to go, that's good to go, and that's basically everything you see here. As far as pledge levels, we have $69 for the base game, which is going to give you all that new deluxe fight stuff, all the components, all the everything, and then $99 if you want the winter expansion too. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? So this is from the same company that brings you Clinic, which already has been in a middle zone. Clinic in general, and all its deluxifications and its expansions, has generally been in a middle zone of some of them hold their value, some of them not. You're basically walking into the middle there, meaning depending on who you are, depending on how much you try to sell it, depending on if you find the buyer, you might be taking a $15, $20 hit, or you might be able to get your money back on it. It goes both ways. As far as Small City, I'm guessing this one likely does with caveats. Meaning if you look at the original game, the fact that the original game has out of print and hard to get, and the fact that you can find copies being sold for $60 to $100 of the non-deluxe edition of the game, means there's clearly demand for this. This is clearly a well enough light game that has enough people who want to pick it up. Quotes like, this is antiquity, but like more accessible, or different, like there's a lot of decent ratings or good ratings of this game, and people who want to get it, and it has not been available. You combine that of the $60 to $100 price point there, and then you have a deluxe edition, which is giving you $60, $70 for the game plus shipping, and then $100 for the game and expansion, and that's with updated art, with updated components, with more modules, with everything else. I think there's a decent chance this holds its value, probably in the same range of Clinic, meaning you might find people who turn around and sell it and lose $10, $15, or you might find people who are able to get well above what they paid for it on Kickstarter. So a bit in the middle. I mean, if you're on the fence that much, in general, their games have come back to Kickstarter, but Small City, this is the first time coming back to Kickstarter, so maybe not. So it's up to you, really. It's definitely still, like many others today, not a lot of exceptions here, like many others today, it falls into that middle zone of maybe, but also no guarantees. There are very few guarantees in life. But that's Small City Deluxe Edition from Alban Viard, art by Quanche Maria. Moving on to Route East, the travel adventure game of 2022. 269 backers, $13,000. This one funded recently, 25 days to go, and this is, well, a travel game, a take that travel game, and that's important as far as where this game lies. But effectively, it's a game about trying to travel around, putting up hotels. You can stay by hotels, your friends have to pay you for it. You're going to be playing cards to get in each other's way. I'm trying to scroll down to the map to show it to you, because the map is the most interesting part over here. Here we go, here's the map. If I zoom in further, you can get a feel for this, because all those things I talked about, this is like going point to point on on this map is a big deal. I think they said there's like 700,000 pathways, possible pathways, not actual lines, but like between going from here to here to here to here, 700,000 possible routes to take. And honestly, this map is the most compelling aspect of it, at least to me, because otherwise the game just seems like a take that travel game, which is a common genre, but less board game focused, less designer board game focused, I should say. So this game might be a lot of fun. This game might be a ton of fun for the right audience, and they've clearly found their audience because people have backed it and funded the game. But because of the excessive amount of take that in the game and the point-to-point movement combined with it, it seems to be a game that might be a good bridging point into more modern game design, but possibly still leaning a bit more towards mass market in its type of game, which is great. It's not meant to gatekeep. That's great for who it works, but it is relevant to whether it holds its value or not, because practically speaking, those games don't. Coming in at basically, we have $42 for the base game, and then it goes up from there, a few other pledge levels as you can go through it, but basically $42 for the base game over here to jump in on it. This is one that's unlikely to be holding its value if you buy this game, if you get your hands in it. I mean, Kickstarter might be the best place, because with 269 backers, there's not a lot of people out there who are backing it, which means there won't be a large secondhand market, which means it may or may not have a retail follow-up and all that stuff. So yeah, ultimately comes down to you as far as whether you want to go ahead and get that, but it's one that's less likely to hold its value. And we have one left, not less. We have one left to go through. We're doing decently on time. A little under, I mean, I said 45 minutes. We'll be under that. We're probably not going to be under that, but we'll be close to it. Fire in the Hole, the plundering pirate game. I highly recommend watching this video. In fact, Root East as well has a great video. And but anyways, plundering pirate, Fire in the Hole, the plundering pirate game has a great video, like a really great video. Like that, there's like a little jingle going on in that video that is an earworm. It will stick in your head. So I've warned you in advance. And yeah. What is the game you need to know? It's Fire in the Hole. Like, really watch it. It's really, really very catchy. Kudos to the two of them. Phenomenal video, both in terms of the jingle that is very catchy, as well as the fact that if you get to the minute mark, if you stick around that long, you'll also get a great how to play of this game, very quick and to the point. Basically, it's play cards and then try to toss your little cannonballs into the ship until ultimately one player is able to create a network, a grouping of 4 of those cannonballs in some sort of line, a square, or it's not just connection of 4 different cannonballs while playing cards and doing all of that. It's a pop-up situation, meaning the whole game strip is structured to be pop-up. You just pop it up, it opens up, does all that. There's going to be, what else is there? There's card play, there's this dexterity aspects, there's tossing with your other hand, there's tossing behind your back. I don't know if there's tossing behind your back. There's different stuff as far as the different cards you can play while you try to slowly fill up the ship with your specific cannonballs in the game. That's what's going on here. It looks fun. If you like Catapult, what's it called? Catapult Feud. If you're interested in Catapult Feud, then this is going to fall into the same genre. The game looks delightful. Look at that. Let's go ahead and show you that. The game looks great. It looks amazing. It looks the kind of game, well, amazing is relative. I'm talking from the stance of a father of a bunch of kids who like Catapult Feud, and I'm interested in Fire in the Hole because they really enjoyed that, and this one is pirates, and they love pirates, and this is pop-up and adorable, and you're tossing your cannonballs into there. It looks like it could be a lot of fun while leaning heavily into the dexterity with a dash of strategy, a very small dash of strategy, and a lot more of a dexterity, fun little experience. I think it looks fun. I think it looks engaging. Also, it's like Catapult Feud, which means it's falling into a specific genre of game. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have $49 for $40 for the first mate edition over here. We have, Boat Swain edition, $28. Then we have $40 for the first mate, $49 for the quartermaster. You can go through these. They all come with extra stuff, some components, some bags, some this, some that. There are different extra things being added. Base game as it is comes with the board, the box, the box opens up and all that. Comes with pirate patches. 4 pirate patches for the players, bunch of cards, bunch of cannonballs. I hope there's an option to buy like extra cannonballs, because I mean, as much as my kids like this genre of games, they tend to lose things very quickly. So I would want to have an extra supply of cannonballs. I'm happy to pay for them because, I mean, the game without the right cannonballs is not going to work. But anyways, that's what's going on in Fire in the Hole. Again, highly recommend watching the video. As far as should you get it, should you not, it ultimately comes down to if you want it. This is one that is unlikely to hold its value. Same basic issue. This genre of game tends to not have a high degree of secondhand market accessibility. It's possible this is the exception. I'm just skeptical that it would be. So overall, it falls in the category of if you want it, if you're interested in it, go ahead and get it. But it's one that you're getting based on the fact that it's likely to not be a great back or hold its value. You're just getting because it looks adorable and hey, support the publishers and all that stuff. And again, the video is very catchy. But anyways, that is everything. That is Fire in the Hole, the plundering pirate game, and that is all the stuff for today, which brings us to the picks of the week. Picks of the week in general, I picked 2 games. I picked a game that is most likely to hold its value, and then the game I am personally the most interested in. For personally the most interested in, I almost chose Motor City because it's great. I like Motor City a lot, but I also have a lot of roll-and-write games, so I'm shifting it over to Tiwanaku, which is more standout in the genre that it's being, at least for myself. So Tiwanaku is my pick of the week as far as the game that I am most interested in personally. As far as a game that's most likely to hold hold this value. There's no strong contenders on it, honestly. There's a few games that fall into the maybe, might. There's the Small City Deluxe Edition. Could well be that it will. We have Hamlet that may well on the Deluxe Edition. We have Tiwanaku that might on the Deluxe Edition. But there's no strong and obvious pick as far as great backs that are, you know, hey, get this on Kickstarter because it's the best place and opportunity, and it definitely is one that will hold its value in the secondhand market. We don't have a ton of those, so I'm not going to pick a, you know, best pick of the week as far as the value aspect. But that's basically what we have here. And that is everything. Coming up next week, we have a few campaigns coming up. We have a whole bunch of campaigns. I'm just going to mention 3 of them. We have Oak from Game Brewer over on GameFound. That's going to be launching shortly. You know, we'll see what happens to this one. Game Brewer does a lot of games. This is one that looks interesting. Haven't looked into it heavily, so I'm going to stop with look interesting until I do look into it more. And then we have the Bad Karmas and the Curse of the Zodiac launching on Kickstarter. This is going to be the Taboo system, the first game in the Taboo system. They've already announced some others. Very intrigued to see how this one does. And then lastly, we have Tamashii Chronicle of Ascend from Awakened Realms Light. This is going to be launching as well over on Tuesday, maybe, probably Tuesday. This is from Awakened Realms Light, the biggest game Awakened Realms Light is doing, and this is launching shortly. And that is all the stuff. That is everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks so much for being here, and as always, have a good one. Just under 45 minutes. Like, just. I mean, literally, like, let's see if I can keep it to under 45 minutes, which means I will have to go straight to my dad joke. I've actually really been having a lot of fun doing dad jokes at the end of these videos, so let's go ahead and do one. Basically, my wife is upset at me. I asked her why, and she said it's because I have a terrible sense of direction. So I picked up my bags and write.